Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right, staying alert, speaking up, trying to be seen, and yet somehow still missing something? Like the room moved around you, but you were always one step behind? This video is an invitation to slow down, not to retreat, but to observe more deeply. In a noisy world that rewards reaction, we'll explore what it means to lead with presence, not performance, to influence quietly, not forcefully, and to see what most people miss. Rooted in ancient Stoic wisdom and shaped for our modern pace, this journey will take you through 4 timeless lessons: detachment from emotion, honest self-observation, the quiet strength of silence, and reading the subtle patterns of life. These are not hacks, they're disciplines, tools for anyone who's tired of feeling scattered and wants to move through the world with calm clarity. So take a breath, set everything else aside for a few minutes, and let's begin, not with noise, but with stillness. Lesson 1. See without emotional attachment. Have you ever walked into a room feeling like you understood what was going on, only to realize later that you missed almost everything that truly mattered? The faces blur, the words fade, and the meaning slips through your fingers. It's not because you weren't intelligent or present, but because you were too entangled in your own reactions to truly see what was unfolding around you. In our modern world, filled with noise and urgency, we've become conditioned to react quickly. Social media, constant notifications, and endless distractions have trained us to jump from feeling to feeling without pausing. But here's a quiet truth: clarity does not come from reaction. It comes from observation, and observation requires detachment. The Stoics knew this long before our digital age. They taught that to understand others, and more importantly, ourselves, we must learn to see without emotional fog. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Said Seneca, when we're angry, afraid, or overly excited, we don't perceive others as they are. We see them through the lens of our unmet needs, our past wounds, our expectations. Think about the last argument you had. Do you really remember the words spoken? Or do you mostly remember how you felt, hurt, misunderstood, defensive? That emotional wave likely drowned out the chance to understand the other person's point of view, or even your own deeper reactions. Now imagine, just for a moment, that you could step back in those moments, not to suppress your feelings, but to notice them without being swept away. That is the practice of seeing without emotional attachment, and it begins with awareness. Let's get practical. Next time you enter a conversation, whether with a friend, colleague, or stranger, resist the urge to impress, to be liked, or to control the outcome. Instead, just observe, watch body language, notice tone shifts, pay attention to silences. Who looks away when someone jokes? Who leans in when a certain name is mentioned? These are clues, subtle, powerful, and often invisible to the emotionally entangled. Here's a simple Stoic exercise. For one day, commit to speaking 30% less. Use that extra space to simply watch. What do you notice when you're not the one talking? What happens in the quiet between words? In that space, people reveal themselves, and you, calm, grounded, and observant, become someone they can't quite figure out, someone they instinctively respect. Detachment is often misunderstood. It's not coldness or indifference. It's clarity. It's the ability to stand in the middle of chaos and remain unshaken. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, practiced this daily amidst war, political pressure, and personal grief. His meditations are filled with reminders to return to inner calm, to resist being pulled by every external wave. You don't need to be a philosopher-emperor to practice this. Start small. When someone pays you a compliment, ask quietly in your mind, "Why now?" When you feel the urge to interrupt someone's story, pause and listen deeper. When you enter a room, take 30 seconds just to observe the dynamics. You'll be amazed at what's usually missed. Yes, at first, it may feel strange, even robotic. We live in a society that celebrates reaction, rewards performance, and encourages us to show up constantly. But the truth is, most people are so busy being seen, they forget to see. When you shift your attention outward, you break that script. And when you do, something unexpected happens. You start to see what others miss: patterns of insecurity, subtle manipulations, hidden alliances. Not to judge, but to understand. As Epictetus wrote, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Ask yourself, what would it look like to go through one full day without judging anyone? Not labeling them as good or bad, not deciding their worth by a single action, just seeing them as they are. That's the root of Stoic perception, to be a mirror, not a magnifying glass. Of course, this is not about becoming passive. Quite the opposite. The one who sees clearly acts more wisely. When you're not clouded by ego or emotion, you can make better decisions in business, in relationships, in personal goals. You become a steady presence in a reactive world. And that presence? It speaks louder than any clever words. People often ask, but won't I seem distant or detached? My answer is, presence is not measured by noise. When you are fully in your body, alert but not reactive, people feel that. You don't need to dominate a room to influence it. You just need to see, really see, what's happening. So here's your invitation. Begin your own quiet practice of observation. Start small. Take a breath before you respond. Notice who interrupts. Watch who avoids eye contact. Don't rush to conclusions. Don't fill every silence. Let your awareness expand without trying. Because once you can see without needing, observe without judging, and listen without reacting, you will begin to understand people in a way that surprises even them. This is not a game. It's a way of living. A way of reclaiming your mind, your focus, your presence. And the best part? No one will even know how far ahead you really are. Lesson 2. Step outside your own mind. There's a truth most of us avoid, not out of malice, but because it's deeply uncomfortable. The hardest person to see clearly is ourselves. We wake up every day and look into the mirror, but what we see is shaped by memory, emotion, and expectation, not by honest reflection. We believe we know who we are, how we sound, what others think of us. But in reality, we often live in a kind of blindness, a fog of self-perception that shields us from uncomfortable truths. You might ask, if I can't see myself clearly, who can? The answer isn't someone else. It's still you, but a different version of you. A version willing to step outside, to become the observer rather than the actor. That's where clarity begins. The Stoics believed deeply in this practice of self-observation. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminded himself daily, "Let no act be done without purpose." He understood that without constant reflection, we begin to live reactively, speaking, acting, and deciding in ways that contradict who we truly want to be. Think about a time when you thought you were being confident, maybe during a meeting or in a conversation. You believed your tone was steady, your message clear, but later, perhaps through a recording or someone's feedback, you realized your voice was rushed, or your words came across as defensive. It's humbling, isn't it? That gap between intention and impact. And that gap exists for all of us. Here's where the practice begins. Imagine you are watching a film of your own life. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. How do you move through the room? How do you speak when you're nervous? Do you hold eye contact? Or do you scan the room looking for approval? This isn't about shame. It's about precision. Stoic exercise. Try this today. In one conversation, imagine you're not yourself, but an invisible observer. Watch how you listen, how you react, where your attention drifts. You might be surprised at what you find, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're finally seeing it. Most of us walk through the world projecting how we want to be seen, rather than how we are. We tell ourselves, "I'm assertive," but our body shrinks in confrontation. We think, "I'm authentic," but we laugh at jokes we secretly dislike just to fit in. We assume, "I'm kind," but interrupt when others speak. None of this makes us bad people. It simply makes us unaware, and awareness is the key to all transformation. The person who can study themselves with calm honesty will always grow faster than the person who only looks outward. Here's another example. Notice how you respond when challenged. Do you defend immediately? Do you retreat? Or do you pause, breathe, and respond with intention? These moments, small, seemingly insignificant, are where your true self is revealed. The people around you are constantly picking up signals, not always consciously, but instinctively. They notice when your smile doesn't match your eyes, when your words contradict your posture. While you're trying to be understood, they're quietly reading the gaps. And here's the hard truth. Very few people will ever tell you what they actually notice. Some are too polite, others don't care. A few might use that knowledge to their advantage. That's why the responsibility to observe yourself belongs to no one but you. Ask yourself, would you respect the way you just spoke to someone? If you had overheard it, would you trust your energy if you saw it in someone else? These aren't easy questions, but they are the right ones. And yes, discomfort will arise. You'll start noticing how often you smile to avoid tension, how frequently you say yes when you mean no, how many times you nod in agreement just to escape confrontation. It stings, but that sting is proof that you're waking up. You might feel like you've been performing without realizing it, that your habits have been driving your actions, that your desire to be accepted has shaped your personality. But here's the gift. Once seen, it can be changed, not instantly, but deliberately. Start small. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself excessively, don't. Let your words land. When you're tempted to laugh at something you don't find funny, pause. When you disagree but stay silent, challenge yourself to speak up. Even if gently, These are acts of self-respect, and they send signals to the world that you are living from alignment. The Stoics didn't seek perfection. They sought progress. Zeno wrote, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." That means making mistakes is fine, as long as they're in the pursuit of growth. So how do you grow? Through constant, quiet awareness. You check in with yourself, not from a place of guilt, but from a place of discipline. Like a craftsman refining his tools, you refine your presence. Over time, this practice builds something rare, self-trust. You no longer depend on others to affirm your worth. You no longer chase validation. You begin to carry yourself in a way that speaks before your words do. And others will notice, not because you're trying to be noticed, but because groundedness is magnetic. Calm confidence is unmistakable. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to declare their values, they live them. So today, try this. At the end of the day, replay it in your mind. Choose one interaction, a meeting, a conversation, even a moment alone. Ask, was I present? Did I say what I meant? Did my tone, posture, and words align? If not, don't despair. Just begin again. You're not here to become perfect. You're here to become conscious. That alone separates you from the many who walk through life reacting, unaware of how they truly show up. Because when you can observe yourself without flinching, adjust your course with grace, and lead yourself with quiet consistency, you become untouchable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can shake your foundation. This is what it means to step outside your own mind, not to escape it, but to finally see it clearly. Lesson 3. Let silence lead the room. We live in a world that fears silence. From the moment we wake, we're surrounded by sound, music, news, messages, chatter. In conversations, silence is often treated like a failure, an awkward void to be quickly filled with noise. But what if I told you that silence, when used deliberately, isn't weakness? It's wisdom? Most people rush to speak. They interrupt. They explain. They try to impress with words, thinking that talking more means being heard more. But have you noticed how the wisest people, the ones who seem calm, grounded, powerful, often say the least? That's not by accident. It's by discipline. To let silence lead the room is to understand something most never will. Presence doesn't need punctuation. True presence fills space without noise. It influences without force. And in silence, others begin to show who they really are. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That includes your words. Every time we speak out of fear, obligation, or insecurity, we give away a part of our presence. But when we speak from silence, intentional, grounded, and clear, our words gain weight. They resonate. Here's something to try. The next time you're in a tense conversation or important meeting, pause before speaking. Just for 2 seconds. Count silently. 1, 2. Feel the space that opens. Notice how others shift. Some might lean in. Others may fidget. That discomfort? It's where your power lives. Silence doesn't just affect how others perceive you. It affects how you perceive them. When you're not focused on what to say next, your attention deepens. You start to notice tone, posture, hesitation. You hear the tremble behind a confident statement. the need hidden in a casual joke, the fear behind the anger. These are signals, and they only appear when you're not rushing to speak. Stoic practice. Pick one conversation today where you intentionally speak 30% less. Use the silence to truly listen, not just to words, but to energy. What's being said between the lines? What's being avoided? In many ways, silence is a kind of mirror. It reflects not only what others are expressing, but also what you carry inside. Are you able to be still without anxiety? Can you resist the urge to fill every pause with words? If not, ask yourself, why? Often, our discomfort with silence is tied to ego. We want to be seen as valuable, knowledgeable, likable, and so we speak, not to communicate, but to prove. But what if your value was already present in your being? What if your calm, steady silence was more powerful than 100 well-crafted sentences? There's a saying in negotiation: whoever speaks first loses. It's not just about strategy, it's about psychology. Most people are so afraid of being misunderstood, disliked, or ignored that they rush to speak. But the one who holds silence comfortably becomes the anchor in the room. They become the one others orient around. Think of someone like Ayano Koji, a fictional character. Yes, but a symbol of composed mastery. He rarely speaks unless needed. He listens with focus, and when he does speak, people pay attention, not because he demands it, but because he has earned it through restraint. When you stop needing to fill space, others start projecting their own thoughts into the silence. They reveal more than they intend. They admit things unintentionally. They scramble to connect dots you haven't even drawn. And all because you were still. But silence isn't about manipulation. The Stoics remind us, control starts with the self. To remain quiet in a noisy world requires strength, not just external, but internal. It's the strength to resist impulse, to be misunderstood without immediately defending, to wait rather than react. Here's another practice. In your next disagreement, pause after the other person finishes speaking. Let their words hang in the air. Don't rush to respond. Don't jump in with your counterpoint. Just breathe. Often, in that moment of silence, they'll continue speaking and reveal what they really think. When you develop a comfort with silence, you also become more selective with speech. Your words are fewer, but clearer, less noise, more signal. And because you've spoken less, what you do say carries more meaning. It lands. It stays. This is how silence turns into presence, into influence, into quiet authority. Still, this path won't always be easy. Some people will misread your silence. They'll think you're cold, uninterested, or arrogant. That's okay. Let them. Their discomfort isn't your burden. Their assumptions say more about their relationship to stillness than yours. The truth is, we've been conditioned to equate loudness with strength. But often, it's the loudest who are the most afraid. It's those who can't stop talking who fear what the silence might reveal, both in others and in themselves. So how do you build this discipline? Start by practicing silence in small ways. Don't respond immediately to messages. Take a breath before replying in conversation. Observe before offering opinions. And when the urge arises to fill space just to avoid discomfort, pause. Let that discomfort teach you something. Ask yourself, can I hold this moment without needing to change it? Can I allow the silence to speak for me? Can I trust that my presence is enough? Over time, this quiet confidence builds. You no longer need to prove your intelligence. You don't have to dominate the conversation to influence it. People begin to lean in, not because you're louder, but because you're more grounded, more present, and perhaps that's what the modern world needs most, not more voices, but deeper ones, not louder messages, but truer ones, not constant expression, but thoughtful pauses. So let your silence lead. Let it clear the noise. Sharpen your awareness, and steady your presence. Speak less, mean more, and trust that in the space you create, others will show you exactly who they are. Because in the end, silence is not absence, it is power. Waiting to be heard. Lesson 4. Read the unseen rhythm of life. There's a rhythm to life that most people never hear. It's subtle, quiet, often drowned out by urgency, distraction, and the need to stay busy. Yet beneath the noise, if you learn to pause, to observe, and to truly listen, you'll begin to notice something remarkable. Life is not as random as it seems. It has patterns, it has cues, and if you can learn to read them, you'll move through the world with an uncommon clarity. Most of us, without realizing it, are stuck in reaction. We respond to what's loudest, most urgent, most emotionally charged. But the Stoics taught us something different. They believed in reading what lies beneath, the consistent behaviors, the repeating habits, the subtle signals that reveal what people truly value. Fear or need. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." In this context, it's a reminder that insight should be guided by character, not control. Start with something simple. Notice someone's daily ritual. Perhaps they order the same coffee every morning, walk the same path, or check their phone at specific times. At first glance, these habits seem trivial, but if you look closer, you'll see they're windows into that person's inner world, routines built not just for function, but for emotional comfort. When something becomes a ritual, it becomes a language, and when you speak that language, even silently, you create trust. Here's a Stoic practice. Spend a day silently observing patterns around you. Watch the interactions in your workplace, your home, or even in public spaces. Don't judge or analyze, just observe. What do people repeat? What do they avoid? Where do they linger? These small details often reveal more than words. People may lie with language, but they rarely lie with patterns. The person who always seeks the spotlight is showing you something. So is the one who always fades into the background. The friend who cancels plans last minute. The colleague who interrupts in meetings. The neighbor who smiles but never makes eye contact. None of it is random. And if you're watching closely, these repeated rhythms become as telling as confessions. Now, why does this matter? Because when you can read the rhythms of people and situations, you stop reacting blindly. You start anticipating. You begin to move with quiet precision instead of chaotic motion. This doesn't mean you're manipulating. Far from it. It means you're awake. You're engaged with life on a deeper level. Imagine this scenario. You're negotiating with someone who seems tough and inflexible. But you've noticed a subtle pattern. They like being seen as the first to know. The insider. The one who gets exclusive access. You frame your proposal as a unique, one-time opportunity just for them. Their ego responds, not because you tricked them, but because you read the pattern they unconsciously repeated. This kind of awareness is powerful, but it's also a responsibility. As you begin to understand others better, there will be moments where you could push buttons, use insight for advantage, or twist truth for gain. That's where Stoic integrity must ground you. Awareness without virtue leads to manipulation, but awareness tempered by wisdom leads to trust, connection, and meaningful influence. Seneca reminds us, "He who is brave is free." In this context, bravery is about clarity, the courage to see what is, not what you wish were true. It means noticing the real motives behind actions, even when they're uncomfortable. It means acknowledging the rhythm of your own behavior, especially the patterns you've ignored. So ask yourself, what do I do on autopilot? What behaviors repeat in me when I'm stressed, insecure, or tired? Do I retreat into busyness? Do I avoid confrontation with niceness? Do I seek attention when I feel unseen? These patterns are not flaws, they are messages. And once you read them, you can begin to respond rather than react. Another Stoic exercise. At the end of each day, write down one pattern you noticed, in yourself or someone else. Ask yourself, what might this pattern be pointing to? Not in judgment, but in curiosity. Over time, you'll begin to build a library of insight, a quiet awareness that changes the way you move through the world. People often say they want to live with more presence. But presence isn't just about being in the moment. It's about being attuned to the moment, sensitive to its cues, its signals, its rhythms. It's knowing that every interaction, every environment, has its own music, and while others are caught in the noise, you've learned to hear the melody. This ability to read the unseen rhythm of life makes you calm when others panic. It makes you confident without arrogance. It makes you influential without domination. And more than anything, it makes you free, because you're no longer a puppet of the surface-level chaos. You've learned to live with your eyes truly open. So the next time life feels overwhelming, or people seem confusing, take a breath, step back, observe the rhythm. It's always there, quietly unfolding, waiting for someone patient enough to see. Because once you learn to read the rhythm of life, you no longer have to force your way forward. You simply move in tune with what already is. That's not passivity. That's wisdom in motion. If you've made it this far, thank you, not just for watching, but for staying present. In a world that constantly pulls us in every direction, choosing to slow down, to reflect, and to truly observe is a quiet form of courage, and perhaps the most powerful kind. You don't need to be louder to be heard. You don't need to chase attention to make a difference. Sometimes, the most remarkable transformation begins when you stop reacting and start seeing. If this message spoke to something in you, I invite you to carry it with you into your next conversation, your next decision, your next moment of stillness. And if you'd like to keep exploring, feel free to subscribe, share, or simply come back when you're ready. Until then, stay grounded, stay aware, and let your presence speak louder than words.